April 2022. Northern Mexico. An 18-year-old law student leaves a party and vanishes before sunrise. No witnesses. No clear suspects. Only one photograph. A photograph that would soon haunt an entire country. She stands alone beside a dark highway, wearing a long skirt and sneakers, staring into the night. The image was taken by the driver who was supposed to take her home. A final proof, he said, that she was alive when she stepped out of his car. No one knew then that this would become the last confirmed moment Debanhi Escobar was ever seen alive. Within hours, her family reported her missing. Search teams flooded the area. Drones scanned fields. Police combed nearby properties. For 13 days, nothing. And then, less than a kilometer from where she disappeared, her body was discovered inside a water cistern at a roadside motel. A place investigators had already searched. Authorities called it an accident. Her family called it impossible. Independent forensic findings later suggested violence, contradicting the official version and igniting nationwide outrage. Mexico watched in shock as contradictions multiplied. How could a massive search miss her? Why were there multiple, conflicting autopsies? And what really happened between the moment that photo was taken and the moment she died? Debanhi Escobar's case did more than expose a mystery. It exposed fear. Because across Mexico, thousands of women disappear every year, and many cases are never solved. And soon, one haunting image, a young woman alone on an empty road, would become a national symbol of unanswered questions. This is the story of what happened that night, the investigation that followed, and the mystery that still refuses to fade. Before her name became known across Mexico, before protests filled the streets, before investigators faced national scrutiny, Debanhi Susana Escobar Basaldua was simply an 18-year-old student planning her future. She lived with her parents in the state of Nuevo León, one of Mexico's fastest-growing industrial regions, anchored by the city of Monterrey, a place known for opportunity, universities, and expanding nightlife. Like many young people her age, Debanhi was navigating the transition between adolescence and adulthood. She had recently begun studying law. According to interviews given by her family to Mexican media, she dreamed of building a professional career and helping others through the legal system, a future defined by ambition rather than tragedy. In early April 2022, nothing about her life suggested she would soon become the center of one of the most controversial investigations in modern Mexican history. But the environment around her told a different story. Nuevo León, despite its economic growth, had been experiencing rising concern over disappearances of women and girls. Official government data and national reporting showed increasing cases of missing women across Mexico, many investigated under the classification of femicide, a legal category recognizing gender-motivated killings. Public trust in investigations had already been fragile. Families often accused authorities of delays, procedural mistakes, or prematurely closing cases. It was within this climate that Debanhi disappeared. The night began like thousands of ordinary weekends. On April 8, 2022, Debanhi left home to attend a party with friends in the municipality of Escobedo, near Monterrey. There was nothing unusual about the plan. Young adults gathering, music, late-night celebrations. According to publicly reported timelines, she arrived safely and spent several hours socializing. But sometime after midnight, something changed. Reports later indicated she felt uncomfortable at the party. Accounts described disagreements and tension among those present, though exact details remain disputed. What is known, based on investigative statements and media reporting, is that her friends eventually arranged a ride for her using a trusted contact driver rather than a traditional taxi service. At approximately 5 a.m. on April 9th, Debanhi entered the vehicle. It was supposed to be a short ride home. A routine decision. One that should have ended the night safely. Instead, the journey stopped along the Monterrey-Nuevo Laredo highway. The driver later told authorities she asked to get out of the car. He photographed her standing beside the road, an image he said was taken as proof that he had completed his responsibility. That photograph would later be confirmed by investigators as the last verified image of Debanhi alive. And within hours, she disappeared. When Debanhi failed to return home, concern quickly turned into alarm. Her family attempted to contact her phone. There was no response. By the morning of April 9th, she was officially reported missing. Search efforts began almost immediately. Local authorities, volunteers, and family members spread across nearby highways, fields, and abandoned properties. Missing person posters circulated rapidly across social media platforms. Her face spread across Mexico in a matter of hours. But what began as a desperate search for one missing teenager soon grew into something much larger. Because inconsistencies began appearing almost immediately. Questions about the driver's account. Questions about surveillance footage. Questions about how an 18-year-old could vanish in an area surrounded by businesses, traffic, and cameras. And as days passed without answers, public attention intensified. News outlets across Mexico followed the search daily. Citizens joined volunteer brigades. Parents across the country saw their own daughters reflected in her story. The disappearance of Debanhi Escobar was no longer just a missing person case. It was becoming a national crisis unfolding in real time. For 13 days, hope and fear existed side by side. Authorities insisted searches were ongoing. Her family insisted more needed to be done. And the question repeated endlessly across television screens and social media feeds. Where was Debanhi? What no one yet realized was that the answer might have been closer than anyone imagined. Journalists began asking a troubling question. How could someone vanish in an area surrounded by businesses, traffic, and surveillance cameras? The longer the search continued, the more pressure built around the investigation. Family members began speaking publicly, urging authorities to intensify the search. Volunteers continued combing the same roads and empty lots day after day. And still, there were no answers. No confirmed sightings. No evidence explaining where Debanhi had gone after that photograph was taken. But what no one yet realized was that the mystery of her disappearance might not lie miles away. It might lie much closer. Closer than anyone searching that area could have imagined. And within days, a discovery would change the entire investigation. According to investigative reports and surveillance analysis, the last confirmed image of Debanhi Susana Escobar Basildua shows the area she was last seen was not empty. Nearby stood warehouses, industrial buildings, and a roadside property known as the Nuevo Castilla Motel. Security cameras from surrounding businesses would later become crucial pieces of evidence. Footage reviewed during the investigation suggested movement consistent with a lone figure walking near the property during the early morning hours. Authorities stated that cameras captured images believed to show Debanhi approaching the motel area sometime after leaving the vehicle. But the footage was distant, grainy, and incomplete. It revealed direction, not certainty. Investigators later reconstructed a possible sequence. After exiting the car, Debanhi appears to have walked along the roadside. Traffic continued passing. Morning approached slowly. And at some point, still unknown, she entered or approached the motel grounds. What happened inside that property remains the central mystery of the case. Because no clear recording shows the exact moment she disappeared. No witness publicly confirmed seeing her enter. And no immediate alarm was raised. Hours turned into a full day. While her family searched desperately, life around the motel continued normally. Guests arrived. Employees worked shifts. Vehicles moved in and out. Yet somewhere within meters of that activity, Debanhi was no longer visible. For nearly 2 weeks, search teams focused on surrounding land. Volunteers walked fields under intense heat. Police inspected roadside areas repeatedly. According to official statements, authorities searched locations near where she was last seen multiple times. The motel property itself was also inspected during early search efforts. Nothing was discovered. No sign of the missing teenager. The case began to feel impossible. How could someone vanish so completely in an area already under investigation? Then, on April 22, 2022, 13 days after her disappearance, a new development changed everything. Employees at the Nuevo Castilla Motel reported a strong odor coming from a water cistern located on the property. Authorities responded. Inside the cistern, partially concealed and filled with water, investigators discovered a body. It was Debanhi. The discovery shocked the country. not only because she had been found dead, but because she had been located less than a kilometer from where the search began, in a place authorities had already examined. Questions erupted immediately. How had she not been found earlier? Was the area properly searched? Had evidence been overlooked? Or had something changed between the searches and the discovery? Initial forensic findings released by local prosecutors suggested that Debanhi died from a severe head injury, possibly caused by a fall. Officials indicated the possibility of an accidental death. But almost immediately, doubts emerged. Her family publicly challenged the explanation. Independent forensic analysis later requested by relatives reached different conclusions, suggesting signs of violence inconsistent with a simple accident, findings widely reported by national and international media. The conflicting interpretations transformed the case from a disappearance into a national controversy. Investigators now faced two parallel mysteries. The first, what happened during the early morning hours of April 9th? The second, how an intensive search failed to locate her body for nearly 2 weeks. Public attention intensified. News channels broadcast daily updates. Crowds gathered outside investigative offices. And across Mexico, many began asking whether the truth had been missed or hidden. Because the discovery of Debanhi Escobar did not close the case, it reopened it. Every detail, the photograph, the driver's account, the surveillance footage, the search procedures, would now be re-examined under national scrutiny. And the investigation was about to enter its most controversial phase. The mystery was no longer only about disappearance. Now, it was about responsibility. When authorities confirmed that the body found at the Nueva Castilla motel belonged to Debanhi Susana Escobar Basaldua, the search for a missing teenager suddenly became a full homicide investigation. But instead of bringing clarity, the discovery introduced a new wave of uncertainty. Because almost immediately, the official explanation faced scrutiny. Prosecutors in Nuevo León announced that preliminary forensic findings indicated a severe head injury. According to early statements, investigators believed the injury might have been caused by a fall. Officials suggested the possibility that Debanhi had accidentally fallen into the motel's water system. But the circumstances surrounding the discovery raised difficult questions. The cistern was located within a property that had already been searched. Investigators had inspected the motel grounds during earlier stages of the search. Yet Debanhi's body had not been found until nearly 2 weeks after her disappearance. For many observers, that detail alone was troubling. How could a search operation involving police, drones, and volunteers fail to locate a body only a short distance from the last known location? The explanation given by authorities suggested the cistern had been covered and partially concealed. But critics argued that the search should still have detected it. The uncertainty quickly fueled public skepticism. News outlets across Mexico began closely analyzing the investigation. Legal experts questioned the early conclusions, and Debanhi's family demanded independent verification of the forensic findings. Within days, the case began attracting international attention. Journalists from outside Mexico reported on the growing controversy. Activists pointed to the case as an example of broader concerns about investigations into violence against women. Meanwhile, investigators continued gathering evidence. Security camera footage from surrounding properties was collected and reviewed. The footage reportedly showed images believed to be Debanhi walking toward the motel area during the early hours of April 9th. Although the images were not perfectly clear, officials stated that the timeline suggested she had moved through the area shortly after leaving the vehicle. Investigators also analyzed phone records and digital data in an effort to reconstruct her final movements. But despite the expanding investigation, key questions remained unanswered. Debanhi's family soon took an unusual step. Unsatisfied with the official explanation, they requested an independent forensic review. A second autopsy was conducted by outside specialists, and the results were significantly different. According to the independent report, the injuries described could indicate violence prior to death. Some forensic experts involved in the second examination suggested the possibility of assault, conclusions that contradicted the earlier suggestion of an accidental fall. The conflicting findings created a major turning point in the investigation. Now, two different interpretations existed. one pointing toward accidental death, the other suggesting homicide. The contradiction intensified public pressure. Demonstrations began appearing across parts of Mexico. Protesters carried photographs of Debanhi. Many demanded transparency and accountability from authorities. For families of other missing women, the case reflected a broader pattern they believed had existed for years. Investigations that moved slowly. Evidence that appeared incomplete. Cases that struggled to reach definitive conclusions. As the controversy grew, the federal government became increasingly involved in reviewing the case. Investigators continued analyzing surveillance footage, property layouts, and search procedures. Officials attempted to determine exactly when and how Debanhi had entered the system. But reconstructing the final moments proved extremely difficult. The available video footage did not clearly capture the critical moment. No confirmed witnesses publicly described seeing her fall or enter the area. And the timeline between the last known image of Debanhi alive and the discovery of her body remained uncertain. Forensic investigators examined the cistern itself. They studied the depth of the water, the structure surrounding the opening, and the possible ways a person could enter it. Each detail became part of a growing effort to determine whether the death had been accidental or intentional. Meanwhile, the investigation also examined individuals connected to the events of that night. Authorities questioned the driver who had taken the final photograph. Statements were taken from people who attended the party earlier that evening. Investigators sought to understand whether any confrontation or incident might have contributed to the events that followed. But publicly released information from the investigation remained limited. And as the weeks passed, the case became increasingly complex. What began as a missing person search had evolved into a national debate over investigative transparency. Every new detail seemed to raise another question. Every explanation seemed to invite skepticism. And the central mystery remained unchanged. What happened to Debanhi between the moment she stepped out of that vehicle and the moment she was found in the cistern? The answer, investigators believed, might lie somewhere within the evidence still being examined. Because as the investigation continued, one possibility was becoming more difficult to ignore. That the events of that night were not simply an accident, and that somewhere within the unanswered details, there might still be someone responsible. The case was no longer just about discovery. Now it was about accountability. And the next stage of the investigation would push the controversy even further. By late April 2022, the death of Debanhi Susana Escobar Basaldúa had already shaken Mexico. Investigation was about to enter its most explosive phase. Because instead of resolving the mystery, each new development deepened it. Public confidence in the investigation began to erode as contradictions emerged between official statements and independent findings. The Fiscalía General de Justicia de Nuevo León continued presenting the possibility that Debanhi's death resulted from an accidental fall. Authorities described a scenario in which she may have entered the cistern on her own and suffered fatal injuries. But many observers, including forensic specialists and legal analysts, questioned whether the physical evidence fully supported that explanation. And the questions were growing louder. Debanhi's family, increasingly frustrated, spoke publicly about inconsistencies they believed existed within the investigation. They argued that search procedures had been flawed. They questioned why the cistern had not been thoroughly examined earlier. And they demanded federal intervention. Their calls quickly gained national attention. Television broadcasts replayed interviews. Social media amplified every statement. The case transformed from a criminal investigation into a national debate about institutional accountability. Under mounting public pressure, Mexico's federal authorities became involved. The Fiscalía General de la República announced it would review aspects of the investigation. This marked a critical turning point. Federal oversight signaled that concerns surrounding the original inquiry were being taken seriously at the highest levels of government. Investigators began reassessing evidence already collected. Search procedures were reviewed. Forensic conclusions were analyzed again. And the timeline of Debanhi's final hours underwent renewed scrutiny. Meanwhile, previously released surveillance footage gained renewed attention. Analysts studied movements frame by frame. Experts attempted to determine whether anyone else appeared near the motel during the early morning hours. But despite extensive review, the footage failed to provide definitive answers. There was no clear evidence of another individual directly interacting with Debanhi. No conclusive recording explaining how she entered the cistern. Only fragments. Moments without resolution. As investigations continued, media outlets reported additional inconsistencies between forensic interpretations. Differences in injury analysis. Disagreements over timelines. Conflicting conclusions about cause of death. Each contradiction widened the gap between official explanations and public belief. For many citizens, the case became symbolic of broader fears that truth could become lost within bureaucracy. Protests intensified. Demonstrators gathered in multiple cities carrying signs demanding justice. Debanhi's image appeared on banners, murals, and social media campaigns. Her story was no longer viewed as an isolated tragedy. It had become part of a larger national conversation about violence against women and investigative transparency. Inside the investigation, pressure mounted on officials to provide definitive answers. Authorities conducted additional interviews. Experts reconstructed possible physical scenarios inside the cistern. Investigators evaluated whether external involvement could be proven. But proving what happened during unrecorded moments remained extraordinarily difficult. And without clear forensic certainty, the case hovered between competing explanations. Accident, negligence, or homicide. For Debanhi's family, the turning point was not only about forensic conclusions. It was about trust. Trust in institutions. Trust in procedures. Trust that the investigation would uncover the truth behind their daughter's final hours. And as federal authorities continued reviewing the case, one reality became unavoidable. The investigation itself had become part of the mystery, because now the central question extended beyond what happened that night. It included another question entirely. Had crucial opportunities to uncover the truth already been lost? The case that began with a missing person report had evolved into a national reckoning. And even as investigators worked to resolve contradictions, certainty remained out of reach. The climax of the investigation did not deliver closure. Instead, it exposed how fragile answers can be when evidence, time, and public trust collide. And as months passed, Mexico waited for resolution that still had not arrived. In the weeks following the discovery of Debanhi Susana Escobar Basaldúa, Mexico waited for certainty. For an arrest. For a definitive explanation. For closure. But closure never arrived. Instead, the investigation entered a prolonged and complicated phase, one defined less by answers and more by ongoing review. Authorities in Nuevo León continued examining forensic evidence, surveillance footage, and witness statements. The case remained officially open, and its classification evolved as investigators reconsidered earlier conclusions. Federal authorities from the Fiscalía General de la República took a more active role, signaling that the case carried national significance beyond a single jurisdiction. Their involvement reflected mounting public concern that critical elements of the investigation required independent reassessment. Experts reviewed forensic reports once again. Analysts revisited timelines. Investigators attempted to reconcile conflicting autopsy findings that had divided public opinion. Yet despite months of examination, no universally accepted explanation emerged. No individual was formally convicted in connection with Debanhi's death, and the absence of a clear legal resolution left the case suspended between competing narratives. For Debanhi's family, the aftermath became a continuous search for accountability. Public appearances and interviews continued. They called for transparency in investigative procedures. They questioned how early search operations had been conducted, and they urged authorities to ensure that mistakes, if any had occurred, would not be repeated in future cases. Their persistence kept the investigation in public view long after media attention might otherwise have faded. Across Mexico, Debanhi's case began influencing broader conversations about missing persons investigations. Activists cited the case during demonstrations advocating improved investigative standards. Legal commentators discussed procedural reforms. Journalists revisited statistics surrounding disappearances of women nationwide. For many observers, the case symbolized systemic challenges rather than a single unresolved tragedy. It raised questions about coordination between agencies, about forensic transparency, about how quickly authorities respond when a young woman disappears. Government officials announced reviews of investigative protocols and search procedures in response to public pressure. While reforms varied by region, the case became part of a growing national dialogue on public safety and institutional responsibility. Meanwhile, the physical location tied to the investigation, the roadside motel where Debanhi was found, became an enduring symbol of unanswered questions. Visitors left flowers. Candles appeared near entrances. Her name continued circulating online, shared by strangers who had never met her but felt connected to her story. As months turned into years, updates became less frequent. Investigative progress slowed. New evidence was rarely disclosed publicly, and the case gradually moved from breaking news into unresolved history. Yet it never fully disappeared, because every anniversary revived discussion. Every new disappearance reopened comparisons, and every unanswered question reminded the public that the story remained incomplete. In legal terms, the investigation continued. In emotional terms, the aftermath never ended. For her family, justice remained a goal still waiting to be realized. For the public, Debanhi's story became a warning, a reminder of how quickly ordinary moments can transform into national tragedies. The photograph that once marked the beginning of a search had become something else entirely. A symbol, not only of loss, but of uncertainty. And perhaps the most difficult truth surrounding the case is this. Even after investigations, reviews, and years of scrutiny, some questions remain unanswered. What happened during those final hours? Could the outcome have been different? And will the full truth ever be known? The case of Debanhi Escobar did not end with discovery. It continued in memory, in protest, and in the ongoing demand for justice. Across Mexico, her name has become a symbol of a generation demanding answers, a symbol of the thousands of young women who vanish each year, their cases unresolved, a symbol of the questions that remain when institutions fail to deliver clarity. Her disappearance and death revealed painful truths. Searches can fail, investigations can falter, and justice can take far too long. Yet her family's courage reminds us that even amid uncertainty, the fight for truth does not end. Debanhi's case inspired nationwide reflection on safety, accountability, and institutional responsibility. Every year, thousands of families face similar anguish. Her story shows that attention, advocacy, and public scrutiny can keep cases alive and keep pressure on authorities to act. As we close this story, one question remains. What can we do to ensure that no other family endures this uncertainty? Remember Debanhi not only as a tragic figure, but as a call to vigilance. A reminder that justice requires persistence, scrutiny, and collective awareness. If her story moved you, take action. Support organizations fighting for missing and endangered women. Share knowledge. Demand accountability. And remember, even one voice can amplify a story that cannot be ignored. Debanhi Escobar may no longer be with us, but her story will not be forgotten. Her name remains a question and a call. Debanhi Escobar, remembered. Justice demanded.